You've been lied to. All your life, you've been told that being the nice guy is the way to win hearts, gain respect, and build lasting connections. But look around, where has that gotten you? How many times have you bent over backwards for people who didn't even bother to say thank you? How often have you stayed silent just to keep the peace, while your own voice was crushed under the weight of other people's expectations? Let's be honest. Being the nice guy doesn't get you ahead. It gets you used. It gets you overlooked. It gets you friend-zoned, overworked, and dismissed. Because being nice in the way you've been taught isn't about kindness or empathy. It's about fear. Fear of being disliked, fear of being rejected, fear of confrontation. So you play small, you over-apologize, you say yes when you want to scream no, and you call it virtue. But deep down, you know this isn't working. You're tired of always being the one who gives without receiving. You're exhausted from living a life that pleases everyone but you. You're not respected, you're tolerated. And people don't admire that. They take advantage of it. It's time to stop. You're not here to be a doormat. You're not here to sacrifice your dignity in the hope that someone will finally see your worth, because no one will value what you don't first value yourself. Being agreeable is not a personality. It's a survival tactic, and survival mode is no way to live. Real strength is not about being liked. It's about being honest. It's about drawing boundaries, even if it makes people uncomfortable. It's about saying what you mean and meaning what you say. It's about choosing your peace over their approval. And let me be clear, you can be kind without being spineless. You can be compassionate without being a pushover. When you stop being the nice guy, you stop hiding behind fake smiles and start living with real power. People respect men who stand firm, who know their value, who don't chase validation. You don't need to prove you're good. You need to start being real, because the world doesn't need another agreeable shadow. It needs a man who knows who he is and isn't afraid to walk away from anything that doesn't serve him. So stop waiting for people to give you permission. Stop trying to earn love by playing small. Stop handing your power to people who wouldn't even pick you out of a crowd if you weren't so convenient. Start showing up as a man with standards, with purpose, with presence. Because when you stop being the nice guy, you start becoming the man you were always meant to be. You've spent your whole life believing that being nice is the right thing to do. You were taught that politeness, agreeableness, and selflessness would earn you love, attention, and respect. You thought if you just stayed humble, stayed agreeable, and gave enough of yourself, people would notice your goodness and reward you for it. But here's what no one told you. Most of that behavior isn't rooted in true kindness. It's rooted in fear. It's driven by a deep, unconscious desire to be accepted, to avoid rejection, to stay safe in the eyes of others. Being a nice guy often means avoiding confrontation, even when it's necessary. It means staying quiet when you should speak up. It means sacrificing your own needs for the sake of peace, even when that peace is fake. And deep down, you know it. You know that every time you say yes when you want to say no, you're betraying yourself. Every time you hold back what you truly think just to avoid rocking the boat, you're abandoning your power. That isn't kindness, it's self-preservation. It's fear disguised as virtue. This fear shows up in subtle but powerful ways. You over-apologize even when you've done nothing wrong. You compliment excessively, hoping people will like you in return. You suppress your opinions, hoping to appear agreeable. You avoid taking risks or asserting yourself, afraid it might make someone uncomfortable or push them away. You see, the nice guy isn't nice because he's secure. He's nice because he's scared. Scared of being alone, scared of being disliked, scared of being seen as anything other than good. So he becomes a chameleon, constantly adjusting to the needs of others while ignoring his own. But here's the hard truth. That kind of niceness is not attractive. It's not powerful. It's not even real. Because when you're acting out of fear, your kindness isn't a gift. It's a transaction. You're not being generous. You're hoping to earn something in return. Validation, attention, approval. And when you don't get it, you feel resentful, frustrated, and invisible. That's not authentic connection. That's emotional manipulation dressed up as decency. The world doesn't need more people who are afraid to be themselves. It needs people who are honest, grounded, and brave enough to stand in their truth. And that can't happen when you're being controlled by fear. Real kindness comes from strength, not weakness. It's when you have the confidence to speak your truth with love. It's when you're generous not because you want something, but because it's who you are. It's when you draw a line, say no, or walk away, not because you're angry, but because you respect yourself. You have to understand this. Fear-based niceness is a form of self-erasure. Every time you make yourself smaller to fit into someone else's expectations, you disappear a little more. Every time you hide your real thoughts and feelings, you send the message that your truth doesn't matter. And the longer you do this, the more disconnected you become from who you really are. You don't even know what you want anymore because you've been trained to only care about what others want from you. And it's not your fault. You were probably conditioned from a young age to believe that being good means never upsetting anyone, that pleasing others is the path to safety and success. But the truth is, the people who get ahead, the ones who are respected, loved, and admired, aren't the ones who avoid tension. They're the ones who know how to handle it. They speak clearly. They set boundaries. They don't shy away from being disliked because they know their value doesn't depend on outside approval. That's confidence. That's maturity. That's real strength. So you have to ask yourself, are you being nice because you want to be, or because you're afraid of what will happen if you're not? Are you giving out of love, or are you trying to buy love with your behavior? Are you agreeing with people because you truly share their perspective, or because you don't want to be seen as difficult? These are the uncomfortable questions you need to face, because until you do, you'll keep living a life that looks kind on the outside but feels hollow on the inside. The first step is recognizing that being a good man doesn't mean being a passive one. It doesn't mean always saying the right thing or being universally liked. It means being grounded in your identity. It means being honest with yourself and with others. It means knowing your worth, even if someone else doesn't see it. And when you operate from that place, your kindness becomes real. Your generosity becomes sincere. Your presence becomes magnetic, not because you're trying to impress anyone, but because you've stopped being afraid of who you are. You can't control how people see you, but you can control whether or not you respect yourself. And the truth is, when you stop living in fear, when you stop hiding behind niceness, when you start showing up as the real you, people will feel it. Some will be drawn to it, some won't. But that doesn't matter. What matters is that you'll finally be living from a place of truth. And that's where everything real begins. Being a nice guy often feels like a curse disguised as a compliment. You're the one who remembers birthdays, offers help without being asked, and sacrifices your time to be available for others. You're dependable, thoughtful, respectful, but still you get overlooked, passed by, left out. You watch as people who are bolder, louder, and more assertive get the attention, the admiration, and the opportunities, while you sit on the sidelines wondering what you did wrong. It doesn't make sense, does it? You give more, you care more, you try harder. Yet somehow it's never enough. Here's the truth. Most people won't say out loud, being the nice guy doesn't make you more lovable. It makes you forgettable. Not because kindness is a weakness, but because your version of kindness comes at the cost of your authenticity. People don't respond to perfection. They respond to presence. And when you're constantly adjusting yourself to be liked, when you suppress your truth to be accepted, you're not really there. You become a mirror reflecting what others want to see instead of a man standing in who he really is. The result? You get used. People come to you when they need a favor, when they want comfort, when they're lonely or in crisis, but rarely do they show up for you in return. You've trained them, maybe without even realizing it, that your time, energy, and presence come without limits or expectations. You give and give, thinking it will earn their love or loyalty, but all it earns is convenience. They see you as available, not valuable. And when something better comes along, they move on without a second thought. You might think you're being noble. You might tell yourself that you're just more caring, more patient, more emotionally mature than others. But deep down, there's a growing resentment, a quiet bitterness that builds every time someone takes advantage of your generosity or chooses someone else over you. You start to feel invisible, like no one truly sees or values the effort you put in. And it eats away at you, because all you ever wanted was to be recognized, to be chosen, to matter. But the reality is, respect is not given to those who give the most. It's given to those who demand it, not by force, not through arrogance, but by having boundaries, by having standards, by refusing to settle for crumbs. You teach people how to treat you. And when you constantly prioritize others over yourself, you teach them that your needs are secondary, that your time is negotiable, that your voice is optional, and people, whether they mean to or not, will always take as much as you allow. Being overlooked isn't a matter of bad luck. It's a result of how you show up. You blend in too easily. You don't stand for anything strongly enough. You're so afraid of being rejected that you never make yourself a priority. You don't challenge people. You don't set expectations. You make everything easy, even when it's costing you your peace. And in doing so, you dilute your presence. You make yourself easy to ignore. Women especially don't admire men who are always agreeable. They respect men who have a spine, men who say what they mean and don't back down when challenged, men who can lead, not just follow. When you're constantly deferring, constantly appeasing, constantly playing it safe, you become predictable, boring, non-threatening. And as much as people say they want kindness, what they really crave is depth, fire, authenticity. That doesn't come from being nice. It comes from being real. And this isn't just about dating or relationships. This shows up at work, in friendships, in family dynamics. You stay late without complaint, take on more than you should, and rarely speak up about how overwhelmed you are. Because deep down, you're terrified that asserting yourself will make people think you're selfish or ungrateful. But here's the irony. By never advocating for yourself, you actually lose the respect of others. People respect clarity. They respect those who know their limits. They may not like it in the moment, but they remember it. And over time, that memory turns into trust. The longer you operate as the nice guy, the more disconnected you become from your power. You start to believe that your only value is in how useful you are to others. You start to fear that if you stop being so available, so accommodating, people will stop liking you. But the people who walk away when you start standing up for yourself were never truly with you to begin with. They were with the version of you that was convenient. And losing them isn't a loss. It's clarity. You don't have to be mean. You don't have to become someone you're not. But you do have to stop betraying yourself. You have to stop believing that love and respect are earned through self-sacrifice. They're not. They're earned through authenticity, through honesty, through showing up fully and unapologetically, even if it makes people uncomfortable. You're not here to be everybody's emotional support system. You're not here to be used, overlooked, or tolerated. You're here to be seen, heard, respected. And that begins when you stop hiding behind the mask of niceness and start standing in your truth. Respect isn't given to those who stay quiet. It's not handed to people who always nod in agreement or say yes to everything. Respect is earned by those who know who they are and aren't afraid to show it, even when it makes others uncomfortable. And the truth is, setting boundaries and being honest is not about being harsh or unkind. It's about finally showing people that your time, your energy, and your truth matter. It's about making it clear that your kindness has limits and that your value doesn't come from how much of yourself you're willing to give away. So many people live in fear of setting boundaries because they think it will drive others away. They believe that saying no is rude, that disagreeing makes them difficult, that speaking up for themselves is selfish, but in reality, the people who set boundaries are the ones who are truly respected. Why? Because they're not afraid to be seen. They're not afraid to be misunderstood, and they're not living their lives trying to please everyone. They're living their truth. That kind of authenticity is powerful. It's magnetic, and it's rare. When you draw a line, when you assert what is okay and what is not okay in your world, you send a signal. You let people know that you have standards, that you're not afraid to walk away if something doesn't align with your values. And that makes people take notice, not in fear, but in admiration. People don't respect what you tolerate. They respect what you protect. And the most valuable thing you can protect is your peace, your time, and your integrity. Honesty is another piece of the puzzle. Not brutal honesty that wounds people, but real honesty that holds weight. So many nice guys hide what they really think, just to avoid conflict. They laugh at jokes they don't find funny. They agree with opinions they don't believe in. They stay quiet when something bothers them because they don't want to be too much. But in doing that, they disappear. They stop being a real person and start being a placeholder, someone who just fills the space without adding any truth to it. Being honest doesn't mean being confrontational. It means being clear. Clear about what you need, clear about what you feel, clear about where you stand. That kind of clarity changes everything. It makes people trust you. Even if they don't agree with you, they know where you stand. They know you're not playing games. And in a world full of masks and manipulation, that kind of straightforwardness is refreshing. It's rare, and people respect it deeply. When you start telling the truth, your truth, you stop betraying yourself. You stop watering down your opinions to be palatable. You stop pretending that everything is fine when it's not. And yes, not everyone will like it. Some people will push back. Some will distance themselves. But the ones who remain, they'll be the ones who see you, the real you. And that's the foundation for real respect, real connection, and real influence. It's also important to understand that boundaries are not walls, they're doors. They don't push people away. They teach people how to enter your life in a healthy, respectful way. When you have boundaries, you're not saying, I don't care about you. You're saying, I care about me too. And that balance, caring for others without abandoning yourself, is what sets powerful people apart. People who respect themselves are automatically respected by others, not because they demand it, but because they embody it. And here's the most surprising part. When you start being honest and setting boundaries, the quality of your relationships improves. It may feel risky at first. You might worry that you'll lose people. But what you'll actually lose are the wrong people, the ones who only stayed because it was easy. What you'll gain are relationships built on truth, depth, mutual respect, and those are the relationships that last. When you stop pretending, when you stop overgiving, when you stop making excuses for others and finally stand up for yourself, something shifts. Your posture changes. Your voice gets stronger. Your presence gets heavier, in the best way. People sense it. They might not be able to explain it, but they feel it. And whether they love you or hate you, they respect you. Because you're no longer trying to be liked. You're trying to be real. And real always wins in the long run. So don't fear the discomfort that comes with drawing a line or speaking your truth. That discomfort is a sign that you're growing, that you're stepping out of the role of the agreeable pushover and stepping into the role of a man who knows his worth, who protects his peace, who lives from a place of truth, not fear. And that is the kind of man who commands respect, not just from others, but from himself. Letting go of the nice guy identity is one of the most liberating choices a man can make. For too long, you've convinced yourself that being overly agreeable, constantly available, and endlessly giving is the right way to win people's affection. You thought that if you were just good enough, selfless enough, pleasant enough, eventually someone would notice. Eventually, someone would reward you for being the one who never made a fuss, never said no, never stood up for himself. But all that time, you were trading your authenticity for acceptance. And that trade never pays off. The nice guy isn't a genuinely kind person. He's someone who hides behind politeness, masks his real opinions, and filters everything he says or does through the question, will they still like me after this? His entire self-image is tied to being liked, and that constant need for external validation becomes a prison. You become a man who exists for others, but never for himself. And over time, that erodes your confidence. It strips you of your individuality. It turns you into someone who's always adapting, always shape-shifting, always hiding. And the worst part? You start to believe that's who you truly are. But deep down, there's a version of you that's not afraid to take up space. A version of you that has opinions, standards, fire. A version of you that isn't looking for permission to be himself. That version has been buried under years of people-pleasing, overgiving, and playing small. And the only way to bring him to life is by letting go of the need to be liked. Letting go of the lie that being nice is the key to success or love or happiness. Because it's not. The real key is authenticity. When you stop trying to be the nice guy, you make room for something better, integrity. That means you say what you mean. You ask for what you want. You own your desires without shame. You don't apologize for being direct. And you don't shrink to fit someone else's comfort. That shift is powerful because it changes the way you move through the world. You no longer seek validation. You live with intention. You no longer ask, will this upset them? You ask, is this aligned with who I am? That shift doesn't make you harsh or arrogant. It makes you solid. It grounds you in your values. It teaches you to live on your terms. And when that happens, people respond to you differently. You walk into rooms and people notice. You speak and people listen, not because you're louder or more dominant, but because there's weight in your words. There's clarity in your presence. People feel when a man is rooted in his truth. It's not something you fake. It's something you become. Letting go of the nice guy identity also forces you to stop performing. It frees you from the exhausting cycle of doing what you think others expect of you. You no longer go on dates trying to be what you think she wants. You don't agree with everything your boss says just to be in his good graces. You don't say yes to plans you hate or people who drain you just to be polite. You live honestly. You show up honestly. You let people either accept or reject you based on who you really are, not based on a curated version designed to be agreeable. There will be discomfort. You will disappoint some people. You will be misunderstood. But every time you choose truth over comfort, you reclaim a piece of yourself. And over time, that becomes your strength. You stop second-guessing. You stop obsessing over how others perceive you. You stop feeling guilty for having boundaries, standards, and opinions. And in that space, confidence grows, peace grows, power grows. This doesn't mean you stop being kind, generous, or caring. It means those traits stop being tools for approval and start becoming expressions of who you are. You give because you want to, not because you're afraid not to. You help because it aligns with your values, not because you're hoping someone will finally see your worth. That's the difference between a man who gives from abundance and one who gives from fear. One is respected, the other is used. You also begin to realize that being true to yourself doesn't push the right people away. It draws them closer. When people can see who you really are, without the mask, they can finally connect with you. That connection is real. That love is real. That respect is earned, not because you're perfect or agreeable, but because you're unapologetically yourself. The people who can't handle that truth were never meant to stay. Let them go. They were only holding you back from becoming the man you're meant to be. The more you let go of the nice guy, the more you become something far more valuable, a grounded man. A man who leads, who lives on purpose, who isn't afraid of being disliked for the right reasons. You stop living in fear and start living in freedom. Because at the end of the day, it's not about being nice. It's about being real. And real men change the world, not by seeking approval, but by standing in who they are without apology. It's time to stop living under the weight of being the nice guy. You weren't born to play small, to silence your truth, or to beg for validation through self-sacrifice. You were meant to live boldly, honestly, and unapologetically. Kindness without boundaries is not strength, it's surrender. Niceness rooted in fear will never earn you respect, love, or fulfillment. But when you start speaking your truth, setting firm boundaries, and standing tall in your identity, everything changes. You stop being overlooked. You stop being used. You stop living for others and start living for yourself. And in doing so, you step into the man you were always meant to be. Not a nice guy, but a real one. Strong, grounded, respected, free.